What happens when you refuse to face the truth? It doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It grows louder, like thunder rumbling before a storm, building until it crashes through your life. The Greeks understood this better than most. Their myths and tragedies weren't just entertainment, they were brutal warnings, carved into the soul of their culture. They showed what happens when you let pride blind you, when you dodge accountability, and when you shield yourself from the consequences of your actions. These stories aren't relics of the past. They're a mirror, showing us what happens when we try to escape the weight of responsibility. Like a cracked dam holding back a rising flood, the cracks always widen. And when it breaks, the flood takes everything, from the hubris of their heroes to the fall of their empires. Greek thought reveals a timeless truth. Avoiding reality is the first step toward ruin. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind roaring in your ears, daring you to take one more step. That's hubris, excessive pride. It's not just arrogance. It's the dangerous belief that the rules don't apply to you. The Greeks saw hubris as the fatal flaw, a spark that ignited the collapse of even their greatest heroes. Take Oedipus, the king of Thebes. His story begins with a prophecy. He would kill his father and marry his mother. To avoid this unthinkable fate, Oedipus runs. He flees the only home he's ever known, determined to outsmart the gods themselves. But fate is not so easily avoided. On his journey, Oedipus kills a stranger in a heated confrontation, unaware it's his own father. Later he marries the widowed queen of Thebes, unknowingly fulfilling the prophecy. When the truth finally comes crashing down, it's like a violent storm tearing through his life. Oedipus blinds himself, unable to face the consequences of his pride. His story is a harsh reminder. Trying to escape accountability doesn't save you. It only ensures your downfall. Have you ever felt invincible, like nothing could touch you? That's the trap of hubris, and few stories capture its danger better than the myth of Icarus. His father, Danaus, crafted wings of feathers and wax so they could escape their prison. Before they took flight, Danaus gave a simple warning: don't fly too close to the sun. But as Icarus soared through the sky, the exhilaration consumed him. The air was electric, the ocean below shimmering like molten silver, the sun blazing above him. He felt untouchable, and in that moment of pride, he ignored the warning. The wax melted, the feathers fell, and Icarus plunged into the sea. This wasn't just a story about flight. It was a lesson about limits. Icarus thought he could escape consequence, that the rules didn't apply to him, but the fall was inevitable. When you ignore boundaries, the crash isn't just likely, it's guaranteed. Hubris didn't just destroy individuals, it brought down entire cities. Look at Athens during the Peloponnesian War. The Athenians were at the height of their power, their navy unmatched, their influence spreading like wildfire. But power has a way of blinding even the sharpest minds. In their pursuit of dominance, Athens launched the Sicilian Expedition, a campaign to conquer Sicily. The warnings were clear. This was too ambitious, too risky. But the Athenians ignored them. Their ships gleamed in the sun as they sailed toward what they believed would be another glorious victory. Instead, it was a disaster. Their fleet was destroyed, their soldiers captured, and their hopes of empire shattered. The Athenians' refusal to acknowledge their limits, their overconfidence in their power, led to their downfall. The Sicilian expedition wasn't just a military failure. It was the moment hubris caught up with them, showing that even the greatest empires can crumble when accountability is ignored. Sometimes, the consequences of avoiding accountability aren't immediate. Sometimes, they stretch on forever, a reminder of what could have been. The myth of the Danaus captures this perfectly. These 49 daughters of Danaus were condemned to an eternity in Tartarus, tasked with filling a bottomless tub with water. Every time they poured water in, it drained away. Their punishment wasn't just about their crime. It was a metaphor for the futility of avoiding accountability. The Danaids tried to escape the consequences of their actions, but in doing so, they condemn themselves to an eternity of meaningless labor. Think about the times you've avoided facing the truth, hoping it would go away. Did it ever really disappear? Or did it come back, larger and more overwhelming than before? The Danaids remind us that the effort spent avoiding consequences is often far greater than the effort it would take to face them head-on. But not all Greek stories end in despair. Some heroes find strength in facing the consequences of their actions. Prometheus, the Titan who defied Zeus by stealing fire for humanity, is one such figure. For his defiance, Zeus condemned Prometheus to be chained to a rock, where an eagle would feast on his liver each day, only for it to regenerate overnight. It was an unthinkable punishment. But Prometheus endured. He didn't try to escape or deny his actions. He accepted the consequences with unshakable resolve. Prometheus's story teaches us that accountability isn't just about paying the price. It's about finding strength in the struggle. By owning our choices, even when they lead to suffering, we can transform pain into resilience, consequences into growth. The lessons of Greek tragedy aren't just confined to the past. Look around, and you'll see the same patterns playing out today. Leaders who prioritize ego over integrity, systems that shield people from failure instead of teaching them to grow. These are modern echoes of ancient hubris. Consider how often we avoid difficult conversations or challenging decisions, thinking we're sparing ourselves pain. In reality, we're only delaying the inevitable. The Greeks understood that hardship is unavoidable, but it's also the crucible in which character is forged. The Roman army, for example, faced countless defeats, but unlike the Athenians, they didn't let hubris blind them. After every loss, they regrouped, learned, and came back stronger. Their resilience wasn't about avoiding failure. It was about using failure as a stepping stone to success. Greek tragedies weren't just about despair. They were about the possibility of redemption. When heroes like Oedipus finally faced their truths, they found a way to move forward, even in the face of unimaginable loss. The same is true for us. Accountability isn't a punishment. It's a chance to grow. It's the fire that refines us, the struggle that strengthens us. The Greeks knew this, and their stories remind us that facing reality is the only path to true resilience. The Greeks left us with a stark warning. When we avoid the truth, when we dodge accountability, we set ourselves up for failure. Hubris isn't just a flaw. It's a choice, a decision to ignore the limits and consequences that define reality. But the good news is that we also have a choice. We can face our fears, accept responsibility, and use the challenges we encounter as opportunities for growth. The Greeks taught us that accountability isn't easy, but it's the foundation of strength, resilience, and character. So the next time you're tempted to avoid a difficult truth, remember the stories of Oedipus, Icarus, and Athens. Remember that the effort to avoid consequences is often greater than the effort to face them. And remember that in the end, the only way to build a life of meaning is to embrace reality, no matter how hard it may be. Because when you face the truth, you don't just survive, you rise.